Welcome to today's meditation. Find a comfortable position and let your eyes close when you're ready. Before we begin, a brief reflection on today's theme. Clarity isn't something you figure out. It's what's left when you stop trying to figure everything out. When you stop overanalyzing every decision. When you stop making lists of pros and cons for things you already know the answer to. When you finally let go of the mental rehearsals. Underneath all the thinking, beneath all the second guessing, clarity is already there. You don't need to achieve it. Just stop obscuring it. Let your body settle wherever it is. No need to adjust anything. Notice your breathing without changing it. Fast or slow, shallow or deep. Just notice. Feel the weight of your body, the places where it meets the surface beneath you. Nothing to fix, nothing to improve. Just arriving here. The mind is a strange thing. It's always looking for the next problem to solve, the next decision to make, the next thing to figure out. Even when there's nothing that needs figuring, even when the answer is obvious, it keeps churning. Analyzing, weighing options. Not because it helps, but because that's what it does. You've probably had the experience of knowing something clearly. Knowing what you want. Knowing what's right. Knowing what you need to do. And then talking yourself out of it. Overthinking until the clarity disappeared. That's not the mind helping you. That's the mind obscuring what was already clear. Clarity isn't the result of more thinking. It's what's there before the thinking starts. Before the analysis. Before the comparison. Before the mental spreadsheet of options. There's often a first knowing. A quiet certainty. The problem is, we don't trust it. We've been taught that important decisions require extensive deliberation. That more information is always better. That being thorough means overthinking. But sometimes the first answer is the right answer. And everything after that is just noise. Can you recall a time you knew something immediately A decision that was obvious the moment you considered it, before you complicated it, before you asked everyone else's opinion, before you made the pros and cons list. That knowing, that's clarity. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It's usually quiet, almost too quiet, which is why we miss it. We're expecting clarity to feel dramatic, important, certain beyond doubt. But it's often just a simple knowing. So simple that we don't trust it. Feel your body again. The weight, the stillness. Notice that your body isn't confused about how to breathe. It doesn't deliberate. It just breathes. There's a kind of clarity in that. An intelligence that doesn't require thinking. What if more of your life could be like that? Not every decision requires a committee meeting in your head. Not every choice needs a thorough analysis. Sometimes you can just know and act without the mental drama. The mind will tell you that's reckless, that you need to think things through, that quick decisions are bad decisions. But look at the decisions you've agonized over. Did the extra thinking actually help? Or did you usually end up back at your first instinct anyway? Clarity isn't about being impulsive. It's about recognizing when you already know, and then trusting that knowing, instead of burying it under layers of analysis. There's a difference between thinking and overthinking. Thinking is useful. It helps you consider what you hadn't noticed. It brings in new information. But overthinking is just circles. The same thoughts, the same worries, the same considerations. Over and over. You can feel when you've crossed from one to the other. When you've stopped gaining insight and started spinning. Right now, in this moment, there's nothing to figure out. Nowhere to be. Nothing to decide. Just this. Just here. Notice how clear that is. When there's nothing to solve, clarity is obvious. The confusion isn't in the moments. The confusion is what we add to them. The questions, the doubts, the what ifs, the should I's. Strip all that away. And what's left is usually pretty simple. Think about how children make decisions. They don't agonize. They don't create elaborate mental models. They feel hungry. They eat. They feel tired. They sleep. They want something. They reach for it. There's a simplicity there we've lost. Not childishness, but clarity. Somewhere along the way, we learned to second-guess ourselves, to distrust our first instincts, to require certainty before acting. And certainty almost never comes. So we stay stuck, thinking, deliberating, waiting for clarity that's already there. You probably know what you need to do about that thing you've been thinking about. You've known for a while. The thinking isn't moving you toward an answer. It's moving you away from the one you already have. That's not a criticism. We all do this. The mind is afraid of commitment, afraid of being wrong, afraid of closing off options. So it keeps deliberating, keeping all the doors open, as if having options is the same as having clarity. It isn't. Clarity is one door, the one you walk through. All the open doors in the world won't help if you never choose one. Feel your breath. Simple, obvious. In, out. No confusion there. What if you could bring that same simplicity to your thinking? Not forcing clarity, but not covering it up either. The practice isn't to think harder. It's to think less. To notice the knowing that's already there. Before the mental noise starts. to trust the first answer, at least enough to consider it seriously. There's a question that cuts through overthinking. When you find yourself spinning, analyzing, going in circles, ask yourself, what would I do if I trusted myself? Usually, the answer is there. It's the trusting that's hard. We wait for external validation, someone to confirm our instincts, some sign that we're right. But that validation rarely comes. And even when it does, we find new reasons to doubt. Clarity doesn't need validation. It's not asking for permission. It's just there, quietly, waiting for you to notice. Most of your confusion is manufactured. You create it by refusing to accept what you already know, by looking for a different answer, a better answer, a more certain answer. And in that search, you lose the answer you had. What would change if you trusted your first knowing? Not always, not blindly, but more often than you do now. What decisions would be easier? What would you stop agonizing over? The mind wants guarantees. It wants to know the outcome before it acts. But life doesn't work that way. You can't think your way to certainty. You can only act your way there. Clarity comes from action, not deliberation. You learn what you want by choosing. You learn what works by trying. All the thinking in the world is just theory. Until you move. Feel the stillness in your body right now. This quiet, this simplicity. Your body isn't confused. It knows how to sit, how to breathe, how to be here. That knowing is always available, even when your mind is spinning. You can always return to this, to the body, to the breath, to what's simple and obvious. And from here, clarity often reveals itself, not because you figured something out, but because you stopped trying to. Clarity isn't found, it's uncovered by stopping, by settling, by letting the mental noise fade. What's left is usually enough. As we come toward the end, nothing needs to change. You don't need to figure out how to hold on to this. Clarity isn't something you keep. It's something you return to. Begin to notice the space around you. Sounds, temperature, the feeling of air on your skin. The world is still there, with all its complexity, all its choices. But you don't have to match that complexity with your thinking. Simple responses to complicated situations. That's an option too. When you notice yourself overcomplicating something, remember this. Ask yourself, do I already know? Usually, the answer is yes. Take a moment before you open your eyes, or before you get up. Not to figure anything out, just to let things be simple. For a few more breaths. When you're ready, open your eyes, return to your day, and when confusion comes, remember, you probably already know. Thank you for practicing with me today. See you next time, because meditation should be free.